Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good night, good evening. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me for another video. We are keeping up the videos today, August 8th, 2023, and we are starting off this morning here with one of my other topics that I was telling you about that I'll be talking about here on the channel. We're going to be talking about today, ladies and gentlemen, Manchester United. Any Man United fans out there, please feel free to make yourself known in the comments. Love to hear what you and other Man United fans have to say. I wanted to open up today with a brief preseason kind of look. Now, with preseason officially done and our first game against Wolverhampton Wanderers is on the 14th of August, which is next Monday for those of you who are curious. We are playing 3 p.m. Standard Eastern Time. So if you are somebody who is in the eastern side of things, game starts at 3. And I know that I will be at work, unfortunately. But, however, that doesn't mean that I won't be watching this game, because first game of the season, very much looking forward to how this is going to play out. But first things first, I want to talk about very quickly the signings that we've made so far this summer, and I guess gauge interest on how you guys are feeling about it. So first and foremost, Andre Onana, former Inter Milan goalkeeper, now our goalkeeper, after the rather despicable display that the club has showed for an absolute legend, for David De Gea. Still sad that he had to go the way that he did. I was not a fan of the way that the club decided to handle his departure. I thought his departure, unlike Ronaldo's, was very messy and unnecessary. But with that being said, I will say that I am happy to have Andre Onana here in the team. I didn't watch a lot of Serie A this past year, so I wasn't really too familiar with the way that he played. But I follow the fan channel for Manchester United. There are several out there, I know. But the one that I mostly follow, not for really any particular reason other than it was just kind of the one that I came across first. I'm watching the United Stand with Mark Goldbridge and all those other lovely people out there, Ricky, Mark, Beth, and Adam, and all those other peoples. It's always nice to hear real, Brits and Mancunians, hear their perspective of, home talent, home people. Get the vibe for the place. One of the things that a lifelong dream of mine that still is very much a dream of mine is to watch a game at Old Trafford. At some point in the future, in some point in my life, I will go and do that. I just know it's going to cost me a pretty penny. But moving back over to the the signings. So very happy to see Andre Onana here. He did play very well for us in the games that he did display. And I also want to give a big shout out to Tom Heaton as well. Absolute beast of a man. I don't blame him that he wants to go play first team football. He seems to have a good head on his shoulders. And, I credit to the man. He believes he can still make a difference out there on the field, on the pitch. And I say go for it, man. I think he deserves that move. He's played very well for us. He's been a good servant to the club. And yeah, ultimately, I wish Mr. Tom Heaton the best. So we're going to move on to center backs, fullbacks, and all that. So the main signing that I want to talk about here, unfortunately, is going to have to be Johnny Evans. I don't like that we're going to have to talk about Mr. Evans here, but we are. So Johnny Evans apparently is close to signing a 1-year deal with Manchester United. And with the potential departure of Eric Bailly, Harry Maguire, and I believe Brandon Williams as well, hopefully we'll be able to make some money off those signings. But to be honest, I'm not really a fan. Johnny Evans, I mean, he's a veteran of the game, 35 years old. Used to be a Man United player when he was a lot younger. But, I mean, he's 35. You know, he got relegated with Leicester. I don't really see how we need a profile of his type, especially since him and Harry Maguire are very much the same, and as well as Victor Lindelof, which, no hate towards the Iceman. The Iceman deserves all the credit. I think he showed up a good bit last year for us, and, when the going got tough, that man got tough and freaking put it up. So props to the Iceman, man. I don't want to see him go, although he should go. I think for his career, he deserves to play first-team football somewhere else. I think really he's just going to get a lot of cameos for us. But I'm happy that he wants to stay. I think he's a great asset to the team. He always looks strong out there. Understandably that he isn't that fast, but when you have somebody like Rafael Varane or Lisandro Martinez playing next to him, which we did see a lot last year, it was great to see that people like him can step up and really make a name for themselves, even in being at the club for so long. Last year's signing of Tyrell Malacia, I did like what I saw from Malacia. Still a work in progress. We only signed him for, I think it was like 15 million, I believe, from Feyenoord. I think it's a great deal for 15 million. You see the potential in him. And to be honest, it's exactly what Luke Shaw needs to keep his mind straight and clear. And plus, I think another thing too, and I'm going to get back to Dean Henderson here in a minute. I realize I didn't talk to him about him, but I don't really have a lot of nice things to say about him. I think he just needs to go, but I'll come back to him in a minute. Luke Shaw for me as well, man. Another GOAT for us. I mean, an absolute beast of a man. I'm very happy that he's also deciding to stay. I think he's a very, very, very huge asset to the team. There were some question marks about him when he first came from Southampton, and I think a lot of those question marks have been dispelled, especially under Erik ten Hag, our new manager. I'm very much happy to see that Luke Shaw plays. He plays well. He plays direct. Always is tossing in crosses when he can. And he's got a good foot on him, you know. I like the way that he plays. He's a very good, very good, very, very, very good player for us. And like I said, Tyrell Malacia, it's great to see him here at the club. I'm happy that we signed him from Feyenoord. He seems to be a good signing. And I hope that this year he can keep going and keep pushing forward into the team and maybe even see if he can dethrone Luke Shaw, man. I think that'd be great. That type of competition is exactly what we need. All right, just to finish up with Johnny Evans, when I heard about the fact that we were going to sign him on a temporary contract to get his fitness up, I was hoping that was what it was. But it's looking like now, unless we sell Maguire, and eventually we'll get to Mr. Scott McTominay, West Ham put in a bid yesterday or the day before for $60 million total for the two players, Harry Maguire and Scott McTominay. I think it's a great deal. We did reject that deal as far as I'm aware. I watched a video this morning from the United Stand where I get all my information from. So any information that you hear on this channel, you will hear first and foremost on the United Stand. I credit them a lot for their sources and the information that they're always constantly giving to us. So very happy for that. So that finishes up with Mr. Evans. Wan-Bissaka for the fullbacks. All right, let's talk about the fullbacks here since we talked about Malacia. Diogo Dalot and Aaron Wan-Bissaka for me. So I'm going to give an opinion that I think, and that's slightly different from the one that I've heard from the United Stand and other people that I've watched on YouTube. I like the way that Wan-Bissaka plays. I like the fact that he is defensive. And since I have seen him since coming back to following Manchester United more regularly, back when Solskjaer was still the coach, it was okay. So I want to start off by saying we did sign him from Crystal Palace for about $50 million. That is a lot for a right back, for a fullback. But what I will say is that I think defensively he's worth his weight in gold, as so the saying goes. And for anybody else who has been able to watch a lot of the preseason games, Aaron has made a fantastic personal growth. And I see that in the games. You can see that he's trying to play more passes. You could see that he's trying to make those more crosses. Understandably, that's not his forte. He is very much a defensive player, contrary to Diogo Dalot, who is more of an offensive player as opposed to defensive. But I do like him. I think he's got at least a year or two more here at the club before we should probably sign him and look for something else. We're more of a versatile, fullback like Luke Shaw, for example. Good defensively, good offensively. Can make the plays, can make the runs. When we talk about the wingers, I will come back to Wan-Bissaka, and Dalot. But from what I've seen in preseason, it seems that the manager very much likes Bissaka. After Dalot's injury from last year, I believe it was an ankle injury of some kind. He hasn't really seemed back up to it, but I'm happy to see that because I did see him play in preseason. He did look sharp, did look like he was ready to come back and try and fight for his spot. So I'm happy to see that we've made some progress there for both people. I have seen a bit of Alvaro Fernandez in the preseason. He has gotten some minutes. He's looking pretty good. I mean, I'm still learning. For full disclosure, I'm still kind of learning about the tactics and positional plays and things like that. So I can't really say that I know technically what he's doing. He looks like a great player, and I mean, the kid's young, like Ted and Mengi over here. He's only 18, 19, so obviously he can go far. And speaking of another youngin for the fullbacks, Brandon Williams. I don't know, man. I've heard some things about Mr. Williams, and I hope that for his own mental health that he's doing okay. I know that being a professional footballer is a stressful and a crazy job to be a part of, especially when you're making, 80, 90, 100,000 a week. That type of money and those types of things can mess with you, especially with your self-confidence and the way that the world's been going. I can only imagine how people are feeling, and I'm sure Mr. Williams over here really wants to play football, and I'm hoping that he can get a move, a loan or something to help him springboard his career back on track. He hasn't really looked right ever since Solskjaer left, and I'm not sure if that has anything to do with it specifically, but ever since that season that he broke out into the first team and started playing regularly at left back, and I will say, I do agree with those of the United Stand and others that I've seen that he is a right-footed fullback. So for me, I agree in the sense that I don't necessarily know why he's playing as a left back when he should be playing as a right back, especially because he's right-footed. I'm not really sure what the idea with that is, inverted wingers, inverted fullbacks. I've heard that the strategy is more technical as opposed to anything else, but hopefully the man can get his career back on track. He did seem like a good player some 2-3 years ago, and I know he has the potential in him. I think he just needs to get his head right. And yeah, see, I hope and pray that he's got something on him. Now, moving on to the midfielders, this is probably going to be the juiciest bit of them all, and I'll probably take up the most time with the midfielders and the forwards. So for the midfielders, we did sign Mason Mount from Chelsea, as you can see right here. I am excited about the signing, I will say. I was skeptical about it at first, especially with how bad Chelsea in general were. But then again, when you consider how bad Chelsea were, you also have to take into consideration the managers that they went through and all this other crazy nonsense. I mean, the saga of Frank Lampard. What a man, what a beast, what a legend. Anyways, and I will say he has looked rusty in the games that I've seen him play. I mean, he's missed open goals like 2 or 3 times now at this point, but obviously that's going to come with fitness. That's going to come with time on the pitch and on the training ground and getting back up to those levels. But I do believe that he is going to be a very important player for us. And I'm hoping that he can get settled in quickly, man. Especially the role that he's playing. Those are one of those roles that you have to jump in, and you got to jump in quick, man. So looking forward to seeing more of Mason Mount. I have high praise for him and high hopes and aspirations for the man. Bruno Fernandes, our captain, nuestro Portuguese magnifico, an absolute beast of a man. I don't really have anything to say other than keep doing what you're doing, Bruno. You're an absolute beast, a god. And let's freaking win something, man. I have nothing to say about Bruno. I just hope that he continues to have a good season. Same with Christian Eriksen, man. You know, I was very surprised when we signed him last year on a free from Brentford. My concern, undoubtedly, was the heart condition that he suffered during the World Cup. I was a bit nervous about that, especially because, you know, heart problems, anything with the heart, it's very, very serious. You know, and I've actually, I don't know if you guys have noticed this too, but in other sports, it's not just soccer, man. I mean, even footballers. I forget his name, but he played for the Bills, or he plays for the Bills, I should say. He suffered a cardiac arrest right there, like on the spot. And, you know, it's concerning anytime you see a player like that go down, especially in cardiac problems. So props to Christian Eriksen, man. Happy he's still here. He's a great player, and I hope we can utilize him correctly. Yeah. Moving on to Ahmad. Ahmad, I believe it's Ahmad. Ahmad. I believe it's Ahmad. I am very sad for Ahmad because he got injured in the preseason, especially after his breakout season, loan spell, I should say, at Sunderland last year. Man, that kid looks so ready for the first team. I was super excited to see him play. And same thing with Kobe Mainu, man. So gutted for him that he got injured. You know, like in the first 10 minutes of the game, bro. It's so bad to see, but wishing them both a speedy recovery. Very much looking forward to them coming back into the first team and playing and getting those minutes. I'm happy to see that Erik ten Hag believes in the youth. A little sad for Facundo Pellistri. I think he's been a little unlucky. I think he's another one that's got a lot of potential. Very much looking forward to seeing him play as well. Moving on to Casemiro, because Fred is going to get sold. I believe the front runners at the moment for Fred's signings are Fulham and Saudi Arabian clubs. As to which Saudi Arabian clubs specifically, they have not been mentioned, but I believe it may be Al Ittihad or Al Hilal, I believe it was, because Etihad, probably not Etihad, because Etihad signed Kante and all these other crazy midfielders. So I don't think it'll probably be Al Hilal. But again, this is all just speculation. I don't even know myself. I just know that there are Saudi Arabian clubs who are interested in Fred, and we're valuing him, I think, at 20 million, 20, or sorry. I'm so sorry. Galatasaray, the Turkish club, submitted a bid for 8 million, 10 million, something ridiculous. I personally was insulted by that. I'm not even affiliated with this club other than being a fan. So we're not going to be talking about Fred. Casemiro, I mean, what can be said about Casemiro? Real Madrid legend. An absolute beast of a man for us, even later on in his career. I'm sure he's still got a few years under his belt. How old is he? He's 31. I mean, that man can easily play. Wow, I'm only 2 years younger than him? All right, y'all. I'm going to sign off here. Thank you for watching. I'm kidding. I didn't realize he was this young. That's great. No, this is fantastic. I hope that means that he stays at least till he's 33. I forgot what type of contract we signed him at. I think it was a 2 or 3 year contract that we signed him at. But one of the most important players for us, honestly. We do not have a defensive midfielder. There are rumors that once we sell Donny, Fred, Harry, or Scott, we'll be going in for the Fiorentina midfielder, Sofian Amrabat. And I will pull that up for you guys. He's a Moroccan international. Yep, Moroccan international. Plays for Fiorentina. Is a defensive midfielder. I don't necessarily know too much about him. However, Erik ten Hag, our current manager, knows him from his time when he played in the Eredivisie. Yes, Utrecht. And that's actually where Ten Hag was. he started at Utrecht, I believe, or was the manager for Utrecht for a while before moving on to Ajax. So I'm very much looking forward to that signing. If we can make the signing, as most of you know, if you are Man United fans, we are terrible at selling because our higher-ups are just freaking morons. So we'll hope and see what's going on with that. I already talked about Mr. Palestri. Donny, Donny's out pretty much. He's already on his way out. Really unfortunate. Was really looking forward to seeing him play. Excuse me. Was really looking forward to seeing him play. Was really looking forward to seeing him this season after bouncing back from the injury. He made a great goal over the preseason. Has been making a lot of great things happen in the preseason. So I admittedly was excited to see Donny play this season, but it looks like he is on his way out. Real Sociedad are currently negotiating with us for the sale of Donny van de Beek. However, I did hear this morning from Fabrizio Romano, the Italian journalist who is an absolute god, by the way, in transfers. Shout out to Fabrizio Romano. He is saying that Real Sociedad are looking for a loan to buy, a loan with obligation to buy option. The clauses still need to be worked out in terms of fees. I really don't see why. I mean, for me at this point, either you buy them or you don't. I really don't understand. I understand it's good business for loan to buy. However, if you have the clause of obligation to buy and you don't, I believe you get severely penalized for that. I believe it's a fine of some sort. I'm not 100% sure on the details. But, I guess we'll see. I know Real Sociedad is the prime candidate to sign Donny van de Beek. So I guess we will see what's going on with that. Any other updates that I receive from the United Stand / Fabrizio Romano, I will obviously let you guys know. And we'll see what's going on with that. Already talked about Mr. Mainu. All right, so let's talk about Scott. So I did mention Scott along with Harry Maguire. West Ham are interested in the player. As I said earlier, West Ham made a duo bid, I should say, for $60 million, $30 million each. Actually, I don't know if that's actually true. I think it's 40-20 or something like that. But I don't know, man. I mean, I have always been a fan of Scott McTominay. I mean, during the season of COVID, that man was scoring goals left and right. He was a major player for us and a reason why we did so well goals-wise. Because, he scored. He has scored a lot of goals for us, at least a good amount for a defensive midfielder, which is his technical appropriation in the team. I've never seen him, and ever since it's been explained to me, I don't see him as a defensive midfielder. I see him as a box-to-box midfielder because he's much better going forward as he is defensively. As has been pointed out to me by the United Stand, because I sometimes watch the live games with them. He likes to hide, and I see it. He kind of hides in between the midfield people. So, as a defensive midfielder, the purpose of your role is to move the play forward, right? Mark Goldbridge, the person who runs mainly the channel for the United Stand, has said that the equivalent, if we're from an American's perspective, the equivalent of a defensive midfielder from soccer to American football is the quarterback, and I see it, especially how Casemiro plays. That man takes the ball off the back four, right, and then pushes the ball forward into somebody like Bruno, who is then going to direct the play towards the enemy's goal. So I'm not really sure why we keep him as a defensive midfielder. I'm pretty sure it's because we genuinely don't have anybody else besides Casemiro to do that role. And with the unfortunate injury to Kobe Mainu, and obviously also that he is still a youngster, it's great that he shows promise, but we can't overload him. We have to nurture and care for him. So we'll see what happens with Scott. I think for the better of his career and for the better of the team, we should sell him. And I think he'd do really well along with Harry Maguire at West Ham. The way that they play is very deep. So it's very much accustomed to those style of players. So very much looking forward to see what's going on by the end of August. If we do sell him, we will see. And finally, we're talking about the forwards now. So we're not going to talk about Mason Greenwood for kind of obvious reasons. The only thing I will say about Mr. Greenwood is after the whole thing, I don't really want to talk about it too much, even though it's not necessarily an ongoing police investigation anymore. All I can say is that I'm of the opinion that he should go away for a year on loan and just play. Because with the way that the world is right now and the type of trouble that he's been in, I don't think he'd have a great reception at Old Trafford. And to be perfectly honest, I realize that there are no morals in sports, let alone soccer. That got sold out a long, long time ago. However, I think it sends a really bad message for people who have suffered through the things that happened like that. To talk about it lightly, at least. So I think for his career, he should move. I don't think he should play for us anymore. And at least for right now, what we should be doing is finding him a loan for a year, tell him, go, play, and in a year we'll come back and figure out what's going on. Personally, I think that's the best move for him, but we'll see what happens. I guess we'll talk first about Anthony Martial. I gotta say, man, I don't know. Personally, I think Anthony needs to be sold. He's made of glass. He can't stay fit. And, I like the player. He can be a good player. But if the man can't stay fit, there's absolutely no reason for us to be paying him $200,000 a week. If you're on that type of money, you need to be playing week in, week out. And you need to be scoring goals for us, especially as the number 9. So, I don't know. I mean, no one's going to buy him. That's the problem. His wages are so exorbitant that no one even wants to attempt to even come near him. I haven't heard any rumors or anything from the United Stand or from Fabrizio that anybody is interested in Anthony Martial. And again, I'm not really surprised after that terrible loan spell that he had at Valencia where he was pretty much injured the 90% of the time that he was there. It's been pretty much just downhill for Martial. And in fact, I noticed this as well. He wasn't a part of any of the preseason games at all. And I genuinely think it's because of injury problems, and just worried and concerned about the injuries. So I guess we'll see what happens. But I'm glad, and he isn't pictured here, by the way. I'm assuming it's because it's not officially official, even though he was unveiled already to the fans. We have signed Rasmus Højlund from Atalanta. I believe the fee was 60 million, something along those lines. Pure striker. Very much looking forward to the way he is playing. I've seen a couple videos of his, of the way that he plays. He seems to be a very aggressive and strong striker. He's also tall, from what I understand, which is good. But again, he's another youngster. He will go into the first team. He is our first team striker. That is absolutely without a doubt how this is going to work. But I'm not going to be as tough with him. I mean, he's a new signing. He's here. He's going from Serie A to from the Italian league to the Premier League. It is a bigger jump because of the intensity and the rate, as to which people are running and doing things and all that. So I'm looking forward to Rasmus Højlund. Very much looking forward to what he's going to bring to the team, and looking forward to see what he will do for us. Moving on to Marcus Rashford. I mean, the beast, the man, the myth, the legend himself. I'm happy that he signed his extension contract. I believe it was till 2028, so it was another 5-year contract. Again, happy to see him continue to play for Old Trafford, for Manchester United. He's a Mancunian through and through. And happy that he's still here. The only thing I will say I'm concerned about Marcus, or Mr. Rashford, I should say. I don't know him personally. I need him to get his head up, man. He's great at running the ball at people, but one thing that we need from our wingers, and this criticism I have of Anthony as well, and we'll get there, they don't cross the ball. And I realize this because we don't have a real striker, because Mr. Sancho over here has been playing as the false striker. even though that is not his role by any stretch of the imagination. We need our wingers to be putting in more crosses into the box, and now that we have a conventional striker, I'm hoping that I know Eric Ten Hag will tell his wingers, y'all need to start doing this. So we'll see what happens with that first game of the season. Anthony, big season for Anthony, second season. He's got a lot of haters to prove, man. He's got a lot of haters to prove. I think he's a great player. I think there's a lot of potential there. The only thing I will say that I have noticed is he does not like to use his right foot. He is very much a predominantly left-footed player. So I'm not sure if we'll see Anthony on the left and, or see him on the right. I mean, primarily we signed him as a right winger. That is why we signed him from Ajax. But, I mean, he's got to deliver this season. He made some great goals for us. He did fall off. He did fell off. No, he did fall off. That's the right word. I don't know how to English this morning. He did fall off at some point last season. So I think the goal for Anthony this season is to continue to do the type of work that he did last season, but try and keep the intensity levels as high as possible and try and keep that enthusiasm as high as possible. I feel like that's probably something to do with it. All right, so going over to Jadon Sancho. Again, another big season in the sense for Sancho that he's got to really push himself into the team, man. I mean, the reason we signed him originally was as a winger. When Solskjaer signed him, he signed him as a winger, and regretfully, Solskjaer was not the coach that we needed at the time that we had him, but we did sign him, and we signed him as a right wing. And to be perfectly honest, he hasn't really been that prevalent for the team. He's had a couple goals, he's had a couple good things, and I know last season he did struggle with some mental health issues, so I'm hoping, Jadon, that you get that help that you need, bud. I know it's a crazy world out there, I know it's a crazy time, but man, you're doing the best job in the world, man. People would be dying to have your job. I realize that's a bit condescending, so I apologize in advance. But I just want him to play well. I know he's a good player. We signed him from Dortmund for a reason, and I think he has the potential to play well and to do what we want him to do. Again, I'm hoping for his sake that he has his head on right and that he continues to get whatever help he needs so that he can continue to play well for us. So we'll see how Jadon plays and where his position in the team is, because with the introduction of Højlund, he's been occupying the false nine position because we haven't signed Højlund at all during the window up until now. So Højlund wasn't available for any of the preseason games. But I guess, we'll see what he can do. I think Jadon Sancho is a good player. I see a player in him, and I see that he has potential. I guess it's just really down to how the manager wants to play and how that philosophy ties into his strengths. So I guess we'll see what happens. We aren't going to talk about too much about Shola Shoretire. I believe he is... he's broken out a few times last season into the first team. I do see a potential player there. He's still very, very young. So, I think a loan move would probably be good for him in the championship. Kind of like what Ahmad did. Go to Sunderland or go to any one of those mid-table teams and just play, man. Just play as best you can and see how you do. Definitely one for the future. I'm not sure if he will fit into the team in the future, though, because assuming we keep our wingers, he is just another winger. I'm not sure we really need that right now. We're really needing defensive midfielders and center backs at the moment. And finally, we're going to end this video with Alejandro Garnacho. Before we talk about the table, just round out the video like that. So, Mr. Garnacho, what a beast, man. 19 years old, breaks out into the first team last season, and just rocks the stadium, man. I really like to see him play. He does remind me of a Rashford-style player. He does like to run at people. He's very fast. He's very physical. And he's got a good shot on him, man. I think the only thing that is messing with him at the moment is a little bit of some selfishness. And I mean, granted, you're 19, you're playing in front of 70, 80,000 people in one of the biggest stadiums in the world and one of the most widely recognized teams in the world. I'm sure it'll get to your head every once in a while. It would happen to everyone. I'm sure it would happen to me as well. But I do have high hopes for Alejandro Garnacho. He would be another starting left winger for me. He seems very dangerous on that left wing. So I'm very curious to see how he plays and what he is able to produce for us this season. And he's the type of profile player we need, man. You know, young, hungry, wanting to win, wanting to play games. So that's I'm looking forward to this season, man. Man United have made some good moves. We still have a couple more things that we got to accomplish for the season before it starts next week, and by the end of the transfer window, by the end of this month. But I'm hopeful, man. I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful for this season. Okay, so now that we're done with our players, let's transition over to the table and talk about this for a few minutes before I let you guys go for the day. So what are my predictions? What are my predictions? So based on what everybody's been doing this summer, in terms of movement and signings and things like that, I think the top four for me, it's going to be... Actually, I'll do top six. First place for me, I don't know. A lot of people are still saying Man City. I know that Man City are still a good team. However, they've lost a lot of good players this window. Ilkay Gundogan is one of them for me. I mean, he was their best player last season. He besides De Bruyne and Haaland, I think Ilkay Gundogan was a very underrated player. Not that I don't think their Man City players, didn't value Ilkay Gundogan, but he really was an absolute revelation for that team. And now that he's gone to Barcelona, a lot of that creativeness is lost. I mean, you still have Kevin De Bruyne, but when you had a midfield of De Bruyne, Foden, and what's his face that I was just talking about right now? Oh God, Gundogan. Goodness gracious. It is concerning either way because you as a Man United fan, we can't allow City to just continue to run rampant, even if they are being charged 192 charges of financial fair play issues. But we're not going to go there right now. So I guess we'll see what happens. I still think it'll be a toss-up between Arsenal, Man City for first, second. I feel like those two places are interchangeable. I do feel like Arsenal are still strong. I got to be honest, though. Not a fan of them signing, what's his face, David Raya from Brentford as a competition for Ramsdale. I never was a fan of Ramsdale when he was at Sheffield United. He was terrible, mostly because the team in general was terrible. So I'm not sure how that's going to play out. But I mean, and obviously Ramsdale was good for Arsenal last season, but he had his moments where he fell off hard, and I guess we'll see what happens. But that type of competition, we saw last year at Chelsea. I keep confusing Azpilicueta with Kepa. With Kepa and Mendy, that partnership was always tough because both of them considered themselves to be first team goalkeepers. None of them considered themselves backups. So, and one of the main things that I've heard people like, for anybody who is familiar with soccer, Ben Foster, who currently plays for AFC Wrexham, and also known as the Cycling GK on YouTube. Definitely recommend checking out his YouTube channel, by the way. Absolutely down-to-earth bloke. I've never met him, but he seems like a genuinely nice guy, and that type of wholesome content, I appreciate. So definitely give him a follow if you guys are interested in that type of stuff and learning more about Ben Foster. Real nice guy. Used to be, for those Man United fans out there, you probably remember that he used to be a goalkeeper for us way back in the day. So going back to what I was saying, I think first, second, mix between Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool third. I want to give us fourth, but I have a feeling that we are going to be in for a tough ride, especially with Newcastle. Newcastle have made some decent signings, and I know that they're a decent team. And plus, with their new owners being Saudi Arabia, they have that unlimited wealth that, for example, Man City have with Abu Dhabi. So we'll see. I do believe that it will be very close. Sixth, I'm thinking. For me, it's Aston Villa and Brighton. Those are the people. Those are the two things, ones that I believe will come out. And for the relegation fodder, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I think this season is pretty straightforward, at least for two positions: Sheffield United and Luton Town. Great to see Luton Town in the Premier League, by the way. I did watch their final match versus Coventry City for the Premier League spot. But for me, guys, it's Luton Town, Sheffield United, easy relegation fodder. They just don't have the team or the money even just to compete in the Premier League, And I think the final person for me to go down, I've heard a lot of things about Crystal Palace, Everton. I did see that in the transfer market, Crystal Palace sold Wilfried Zaha, for better or for worse, to Galatasaray. And I believe, let's see something real quick here, live on the video. I did hear a rumor that Mr. Olise here is up for sale or was being... Yeah, there is some rumors going around that he is getting a move somewhere. I did see that it was another Premier League club. I don't know if what the one that I saw was Chelsea. It may have been. But, I mean, these two players, Eze is a good player for them. But Olise, Zaha, I mean, they're the most prolific players. Unfortunately, Jordan Ayew, who is their natural striker, really has never done too well for them, unfortunately. Not that I've ever seen. But I guess we'll see. I also don't know. This was 20 hours ago. So it looks like Roy Hodgson is still the coach for Crystal Palace, which I did not like, by the way, that Crystal Palace sacked Vieira. I think it was a little bit immature for them to do that. I felt that way about Jesse Marsh for Leeds. I think it was a bit premature for them to do that, especially being that they recently just got him on. So I don't know. I was a bit sad for Patrick Vieira. I'm not a fan of his, being that he was an Arsenal dude. But as a manager for Crystal Palace, you could see that he was doing something, and I was very appreciative of the fact that he was really trying to make something out of that team. And yeah, so I think that's it, guys. I think that's it. I'm not really going to talk about the mid-table or anything like that, but those are my predictions. So first official, it's a toss between first and second, mix between Arsenal and Man City. I feel like Man City will probably still clinch it just because Pep is Pep. But first, second, Arsenal, Man City. Third, I said was going to be Liverpool. Fourth, us, Manchester United. And fifth, I placed for Newcastle. And then sixth was... fifth was maybe Aston Villa, Brighton / Newcastle. Any one of those three. And as I said, for the relegation, Sheffield United, Luton Town, and I think Crystal Palace. Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me on this day. Remember, Manchester United fans, we have our first game of the season next week, Monday, the 14th of August at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, thank you again for watching. I want you all be safe, have a nice day, and ciao for now.